Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here, and in today's video we have the Game Week 10 transfer tips where I speak about some of the more popular players you guys have asked me to share my thoughts about over on Instagram as well as in the YouTube comments. So if you find today's video useful and you enjoy it, please do drop a like, please do subscribe as well. And let's get on with the video. So I thought I'd start off today's video with a comparison of Matheus Cunha as well as Chris Wood. Now this one was highly requested on both Instagram and YouTube, and for good reason. I think moving forward, the landscape of FPL is such that a lot of us will be shifting towards cheaper forwards such as Cunha at 6.5, Chris Wood at 6.4, and later on in the video we'll speak about Visser as well as Raul Jimenez. A lot of these assets have been delivering, and the more expensive forwards like Solanke, Watkins, Havertz, they all haven't done very well. So it does make sense that Cunha has already seen 67k transfers in so far, and Chris Wood has seen 212k transfers in. Now, in terms of both of these picks, I don't think you can go too wrong picking either one of them, but there are differences, and that is the point of today's section here, to compare them as objectively as possible. So I'll start off with Matheus Cunha first and what he offers. So there's a lot to like about Matheus Cunha, and the first thing I would say is that the fixtures are absolutely brilliant. It's Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth and Everton in the next 5, and even beyond that as well, up till game week 19 or 20, which is probably when you next need to wildcard. The fixtures are so good that I don't think there will be weeks where you're unhappy playing Matheus Cunha. So essentially what I'm saying is that now in game week 10, if you do buy Cunha, there won't be many fixtures moving forward that you're unhappy to play him, in which case he can just be a set and forget, which is something very handy at the price that you're paying for him. If you're buying a cheap forward, generally you don't want to be spending so many transfers switching around these cheap forward positions. What you would generally want to do is be spending those transfers elsewhere, such as swapping your premiums here and there, which is a key aspect of the gameplay this season. So having Cunha as someone that you can just buy now in game week 10 and just play for every single game week until your next wildcard is going to be very handy. So that's the first thing. The second thing about Cunha that I like is the number of shots that he takes. So he's a player that loves to take shots. 18 shots in the last 6 appearances, and 13 of those were in the box. So albeit those were not very quality chances, because it's 0.92 xG that he's accumulated over the past 6 game weeks. So those shots are, I guess, not very high quality chances. But what I would say is that is the prerequisite for a forward scoring goals. You just generally want a forward that's taking shots, or someone that is finding the half a yard here and there to pull his shot off and therefore try and score goals. Someone that's hungry to get on the score sheet, and that is what Cunha is. Now, the downside to Cunha, I would say, is the amount of big chances that he's getting. It's 0 big chances. When you compare that to Chris Wood has had 6 big chances. Now I think this one largely comes down to the role that he plays. He's not playing as a number 9, that is Strand Larsen for Wolves, and he is playing a little bit more as a number 10. Basically someone that plays off of Strand Larsen and also has a little bit more creative responsibility, and that translates into the numbers that we see here on screen as well, where in terms of expected assists, it's 1.05 for Cunha, and also 3 big chances that he's created. So yes, he's not getting a lot of big chances, and that is a downside to Cunha, but I guess another way to see this is also that him playing as a number 10 opens up a little bit more possibilities for him to also get assists as well. So that's also a good thing about Cunha, where in terms of returns wise, goals are not the only way that I foresee him returning in the next few game weeks. He's much more likely than Chris Wood to get an assist. So I think in general, him not getting a lot of big chances wouldn't put me off too much, but it's something I would have at the back of my mind. A lot of the other things we've just discussed, the positive kind of things about Cunha, are the main reasons why people are jumping on him, and I do get that as well. I'm also considering him as my Havertz replacement, but I also want to speak about Chris Wood here, because some airtime has to be given to someone who has been returning so consistently in the past few game weeks. So I'll speak about Chris Wood here. In terms of fixtures wise, I think you see that it's slightly more difficult for him. Some people are thinking maybe the boat has sailed for Chris Wood. I get where they are coming from as well, because the fixtures moving forward is Newcastle, Arsenal and Man City in the next 5 fixtures. So those are slightly tougher games, and you would imagine that Chris Wood may not get as many chances in those games to score. But aside from that, you would also kind of look at it in a different perspective, where you see it's 3 home games, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Ipswich at home as well. So if I were to buy Chris Wood, one of the main things I would take a look at is the rotation that I can have with my bench options. Say for example I have Rodgers or Semenyo on the bench, will they be able to come in for Chris Wood in the times where he plays Arsenal and Man City, which are arguably the two most difficult fixtures that Nottingham Forest will have this whole season. In terms of the numbers for Chris Wood, he is putting up very, very good numbers, right? Shots, he's taken a healthy number of shots. A huge chunk of that is in the box as well. In terms of XG, it's much more healthy than Cunha. It's 2.26, but it also points to a bit of overperformance from him of late, where this 2.26 XG has translated into 5 goals. There is quite a bit of an overperformance here. I'm not sure he will continue to keep up this rate of returns, and with the fixtures moving forward, maybe he starts to normalize as well. But I also do think like I don't put it past Chris Wood to nick a goal or two in the home fixtures that Nottingham Forest have. Now, in terms of big chances here, this is where, as we just spoke about, he really excels in this department. And I think Nottingham Forest, in terms of an attack, have been quite good in supplying Chris Wood with quality chances. But also the, I guess, downside to Chris Wood is that in terms of an expected assist kind of perspective, he's not super creative, so he really just relies on goals for getting returns. Now, looking at both assets in totality now, both of them are pretty good for starts. I would say that Cunha is a little bit more nailed for 90 minutes than Chris Wood, who seems to be taken off slightly towards the end of the games. But I also don't think that hinders me too much from Chris Wood. Now, aside from that, both of them are supposedly on penalties. I think Chris Wood's slightly more certain that he's on penalties because he took one when Gibbs White was on the pitch as well. And then Cunha, I think Wolves haven't had a penalty this season, so we can't really tell. But he seems to be, according to the Wolves forums, the one that is tipped to take the next penalty. So that's for Cunha in terms of a penalty taker. Aside from that, in terms of bonus points as well, I've had a look. Both of them are pretty good at mopping up bonus points the moment they get a return. So that's great in terms of FPL assets as well. And also just what makes it so difficult to choose between Cunha and Chris Wood. So I guess in totality, what I would say is, firstly, have a look at the fixtures that these assets have moving forward. If you would rather go for someone that you can set and forget, and also has a good chance of getting a healthy amount of returns in the next few game weeks, I think Cunha is the one to go for. But the flip side is also true, where I think Chris Wood could continue to score quite a number of goals, especially in the home fixtures that they have moving forward. And he is the one getting the lion's share of big chances when I compare these two assets. So if I was able to find some form of rotation for the Arsenal and Man City game, I also don't mind going for Chris Wood. So it's tough to choose between them. Team dependent and also kind of different structures that would allow you to either go for Cunha or Chris Wood. Let me know down in the comments below which one you are more likely to go for. It is quite a split decision of late, so I would be keen to know where you're tending towards. If not, let's have a look at the next player. So we're sticking with cheap forwards here for this section, and it's Yoane Wissa as well as Raul Jimenez. Both of them are slightly cheaper than Cunha and Chris Wood that we just discussed. Wissa is at 5.9 and Raul Jimenez is at 5.7. Now, I think in general, when we compare all these cheap forwards that we've just discussed, if you have the money, I would definitely go for someone either like Chris Wood or Cunha. But I also know that there are a couple of people who are making a current combination of moves that you may not have a lot of money for. And it's those group of people that are selling Haaland to go for Salah. So in terms of selling Haaland and trying to upgrade a cheaper midfielder to Salah, I would understand why you may have to go for a slightly cheaper forward. You may not be able to afford Cunha or Chris Wood, and therefore you need to pick between Wissa or Raul Jimenez. So again, what I would say is that both these assets are slightly different. Now, the first thing is the fixtures for them. So it's Yoane Wissa having Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Everton away, and Leicester at home. But after that, from the time they hit the Aston Villa away fixture, that is where the fixture run starts to get quite tricky for him. So I guess that is one of the big downsides to Yoane Wissa that I guess I also considered when I was looking at Yoane Wissa as a potential Havertz replacement last week in game week 9. I was quite tempted to bring him in against Ipswich. He obviously went on to get 10 points, But thereafter, when I look at the fixtures moving forward, yes, it's still good. It's Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester, they're still good. But from Aston Villa onwards, that is when you would likely need to spend another transfer to get rid of him. So I do think like that is something that will be playing on my mind. And if you have the luxury of many transfers, then maybe you could just take a punt on Yoane Wissa. I don't mind it as well. The numbers are really good for him. And in general this season, whenever he's gotten the minutes and him and Mbeumo are on the pitch, they've formed such a good partnership that I just like the Brentford attack. Defensively, they're very, very poor, but the Brentford attack has just been looking very, very strong. And when I compare it to Fulham's attack, I think I back the Brentford attack to score more goals over this same period of time. Now, when I look at Raul Jimenez as well, he's at 5.7 million, slightly more owned at this point. It's 10.1% for him. Now, in terms of the fixtures, yes, they are a mixed bag. It's Brentford at home, Crystal Palace away, Wolves at home, Tottenham away, Brighton at home. So I would say that these fixtures are not exactly the easiest run of fixtures for him. Aside from that, when I look at the numbers for Raul Jimenez, it's looking very, very good. And he's one of those assets so far that has been putting up very strong numbers. It's 3.38 XG over the past 6 game weeks, and he has gotten 4 goals and 1 assist. I think it's very likely as well that he would take the next penalty, because you would remember that Andreas Pereira took the last one and he missed, and before that Raul Jimenez took one and scored. So I do think like Jimenez is next in line for penalties, which is something that sets him apart from Yoane Wissa, because Brentford will have Mbeumo as the main penalty taker, and Mbeumo is generally always on the pitch for 90 minutes as compared to Raul Jimenez, where I think Andreas Pereira will start to get subbed off quite early, in which case there's less of a doubt that once Jimenez is on the pitch, he will be the one taking the penalty. Now, I think Raul Jimenez, based on current form, wouldn't be substituted off super early, or I wouldn't be too afraid of starts based on his form. But I do think like the threat of Rodrigo Muniz still does exist. And I also do feel at the back of my mind that whenever Raul Jimenez just starts to put a couple of poor performances together, that Rodrigo Muniz would come in for him. But when I compare that to Wissa, there isn't really as much of a ready-made replacement for him. Kevin Schade is not someone that even comes close to the quality of Wissa as well as what Wissa offers. So I just like the fact that with Wissa, you're paying a little bit more, but you're more certain of his minutes as well as his starts. So that, I guess, is in totality what I want to discuss about both Wissa and Raul Jimenez. If you are going for a cheaper forward and you can't reach someone like a Cunha or a Chris Wood, I don't mind either of these picks. So let me know down in the comments below which one you're going for. If not, let's have a look at the next player. So next up is Gabriel, who has already seen 141k transfers out so far. And this is mainly down to the injury that he picked up against Liverpool. Now in that game, he did not make it to the 60th minute. He came off around the 58th minute. And that was after he got a knock from Darwin Núñez. And thereafter he continued to try and play on, but he just couldn't, and thereafter gets substituted off. He went straight down the tunnel and then came out to sit on the bench with an ice pack on his left knee. So basically, at this point in time, I'll be honest, we don't have enough information to make a conclusive call on what to do with Gabriel. The hope is that we will get more information later on in the week to make a call on whether to sell him or not. For the time being, I can only say my own guess of what is going to happen, which I think, looking at the way that he was able to try and continue playing, I don't think it is too serious. But then again, we will only know after the scan results are out. So based on the current situation, my plan is to just bench him for now. And I don't think a lot of us will be fussed about having to bench him against Newcastle away and Chelsea away. And ideally, he comes back after that, ready for the Nottingham Forest game. And from there on, from game week 12, the fixtures are really good for Arsenal. And it's pretty much when you would want to start Gabriel week in, week out as well. So all would be fine if he's back in time for the Nottingham Forest game. And that is my hope. So for the time being, I'll be benching him. I don't think he's someone that we need to sell immediately. I know 141k people have transferred him out, but if he's fit from game week 12 onwards, would he not be someone that you would want in your team to play week in, week out for Arsenal's good fixture run? So that's just something I would think about, but again, not enough information yet. I will continue to update you guys on the injury status for Gabriel later on in the week with more videos, but if not, for the time being, I don't think he's a must sell. But then again, if you want to sell him to free up more funds, I don't mind that as well. So let me know in the comments down below what you are doing with Gabriel. Are you benching him like I am, or are you selling him for another defender? I'll be keen to know in the comments down below. If not, let's have a look at the next player. Now next up, it's Erling Haaland, who has already seen 52k transfers out so far. And I think what we're feeling at this point in time is the effects of a 15.4 million player blanking, and you add the fact that we captained him for most weeks in the past few where he had relatively easy fixtures, him not returning and really only getting one goal against Southampton is far from what we expect from Erling Haaland for the price they were paying for him. People are losing patience and they're selling him. And when I look at the fixtures moving forward, there is real reason for that, and there's a real consideration to be given, and it's simply because of captaincy. Now it's Bournemouth away, Brighton away, Tottenham at home, Liverpool away, Nottingham Forest at home. On first glance, maybe you wouldn't say that's a too bad of a fixture run, but then breaking it down a little bit more, I think Bournemouth away is actually a trickier fixture than it looks on paper. You would remember that Arsenal struggled there. Brighton are pretty good as well. I don't think they are a team that can be taken lightly. And then it's Tottenham and Liverpool, where I don't imagine you would be desperate to captain Haaland in those games. And then Nottingham Forest have been pretty good defensively this season, that I don't imagine that would be a very high scoring game for Man City. So realistically speaking, if I can't captain Haaland for these few fixtures, I don't mind it as well. Now, the fact is also that the other premium midfielders that people are going for right now when you're selling Haaland, say for example you sell Haaland, free up funds to go for Saka, Salah and Palmer for example, they all have very good fixtures in these kind of similar game weeks where Haaland has a little bit less than ideal of a fixture. So there is a real case now in game week 10 to go without Erling Haaland, but what I would also say is that there's no real rush at this point in time. Like, I am considering it for myself as well. I am likely going to keep Haaland for game week 10 and game week 11 and then look to sell him in game week 12. Now, having to captain him against Bournemouth away and Brighton away, I don't think is the worst thing in the world, but then come game week 12, that is when I imagine that my team would change structure and I would lose Haaland for a cheap forward and then get Salah, because Salah has Southampton in game week 12, and that's also the week where players like Saka see an Arsenal fixture swing. So that point in time is when I think it's more urgent to move towards a heavier premium midfield kind of a structure and lose Haaland. But now in game week 10 specifically, I don't think you need to go out taking -4s just to sell Haaland and buy someone like Salah, for example, to have him in your squad. So I don't think it's a rush. I think it's alright to keep Haaland. And also, I think something else you will have to consider is that the decision to go without Erling Haaland is something that has to be made for quite a significant period of time. I don't think it will be the kind of decision that you can just very simply go in and out of. It's not a situation where you can have Haaland for 1 week and then ship him out in the week after and then want to bring him back after that. You will have to be certain that the next few game weeks you're okay to go without Erling Haaland, in which case, if you are, then I don't mind selling him. In game week 12 is likely when I would do it, but I don't mind if you guys bring it forward now to game week 10, just that I don't think it's worth a -4 and it's not a rush if you can't do it. So next up, it is Dominic Solanke, who has been a very frustrating FPL asset to own. In the past 3 game weeks, he has only managed to put up 0.5 XGI, and for a striker where you're paying 7.7 million, that is really not the numbers that you want to be seeing. And he's gotten no returns in the past 3 games as well. And that's why 75k people have already transferred him out. They can't even wait for him to have the Ipswich fixture in game week 11. They're deciding to get rid of him right now. So I get it. It is quite frustrating to have him across those couple of games where he really hasn't been playing as integral of a role to the attack. In fact, when you look at majority of the games, he's always someone that is more deep than he is poaching in the box. He's someone that tries to create space in behind him, and thereafter the wingers are the ones that are, running in behind. So I think Dominic Solanke, in terms of appeal, has really gone down the drain, and I feel like I don't mind selling him. If I had him in my team, I would be very tempted to just sell him now in game week 10. But something that I also have a look at right now is that the next 2 games are at White Hart Lane. It's basically Aston Villa at home and also Ipswich at home. So I would think that also in game week 11, where that is a week with quite tricky fixtures for a lot of the bigger teams, because Arsenal will be playing Chelsea and Man City will also be playing Brighton. Those are tricky fixtures, in which case I think maybe holding on to Solanke for that particular game could see some returns there in a week where it could be low scoring. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I don't think he is someone that you have to sell. If you're okay to hold on to him for 2 more game weeks, it's likely what I would do. But I also see the appeal of the other cheaper forwards who have all been delivering quite consistently. The ones that we just discussed earlier in this video as well, the likes of Cunha, Wood, Raul Jimenez, Vissa as well, have all been performing very well. And if, for example, you're trying to drop Solanke down to a cheaper forward so that you can afford a move like going for a premium midfielder, then I actually don't mind it as well. So in isolation, I probably will keep him. I don't think he's someone that you have to sell before the Ipswich game. I'll probably wait till after. But if you're selling him as part of a combination move, I probably would just do it and just get rid of him, the fact that he hasn't scored in the past 3 games. So next up is Mohamed Salah, who has seen 106k transfers in so far for game week 10 as of recording. Now, I remember making a transfer tips video a couple weeks ago before Salah played Arsenal and Chelsea. A lot of people were mass selling him. I didn't mind that move back then, but what I did say also in that video was that if you had the means to, Salah is never an asset that you're going to mind having to hold through those tougher fixtures. And what does he go on to do? He scores against Chelsea and also scores against Arsenal. So now in game week 10, a lot of people are reacting to that and transferring him in. Now, this also ties into the fact that Haaland hasn't been playing very well, and the Haaland to Salah swap is very popular. But again, with what I said in the Haaland section, I don't think this is a move that you have to go out and take -4s to do. I also understand there are many people in a situation where you have rolled transfers. Because this season you can roll more than 1 transfer, there are a couple of people now in game week 10 sitting with about 3 to 4 free transfers, for example, and it's quite tempting to just switch the structure around. So I would say that I don't mind making the move for free. Brighton at home, Aston Villa at home, Southampton away, those are pretty good fixtures. I would say Newcastle away as well is an okay-ish fixture. It's the Man City one that is the most tricky, but even that is at Anfield. So I don't mind having Salah now in game week 10 and going for him if it was for free. If it's for a -4, I don't see a reason why I need to get rid of Haaland so desperately just to get Salah, and that's pretty much what I'm doing for my own team as well. I'm probably only going to get Salah in game week 12, but that's simply because I need to save up transfers as well. If I was in a position where I had 2 to 3 free transfers, I would probably be tempted to make that move as well. But then again, it's the same with what I've said with Salah, is also what I'm going to say with Haaland, in that I don't think there will ever be a game week where it is bad to own Haaland. If you have to hold on to Haaland, that is also not the worst thing in the world. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not a must to make the swap from Haaland to Salah, despite a lot of people drawing hype to this move. I don't mind just holding on to Haaland if you have to, and use your transfers elsewhere to deal with other issues. If not, if you can do it for free, I think it's worth giving it some thought as well. Let me know in the comments below if you are making the Haaland to Salah swap as well, or if you're in a position where you can go for a structure that has Haaland, Salah and Cole Palmer, for example, because that is also a structure that is quite popular. I think mainly for those who sold Saka, that is a structure that you'll be tending towards. You will probably be buying Salah ahead of Saka this week, because Saka will continue to have 2 more difficult fixtures before their fixtures turn in game week 12. So let me know what you're doing in terms of your premium assets as well. Are you shifting them around in terms of squad structure? But if not, let's have a look at the last player. So the last player I want to speak about today is Rayan Aït-Nouri. Now he has already seen 161k transfers in so far, so I don't need to tell you guys that he is a good asset to go for. What I want to do in this section is play a bit of a devil's advocate and share with you guys what I think you would be buying into as well when you go for Rayan Aït-Nouri at 4.5 million. So the first thing is a yellow card situation. He's on 4 yellow cards, so it's very likely that in the next few game weeks he will pick up another one and thereafter miss out one game. But does that put me off? I don't think so, and it's only because the fixture run is so good for so long. All the way up till game week 19 or 20, you wouldn't mind playing Ryan Aït-Nouri, in which case it's not the worst thing in the world for him to miss one game out of those maybe 10 games moving forward. So that doesn't put me off too much. What is a little bit more worrying is the Wolves defense. So Aït-Nouri has been returning very well, but that is heavily reliant on his attacking returns. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist in the past 6 game weeks. So in terms of points wise, he's done well. But if he had those clean sheets to go with it, I'm sure he would have been much more of a bandwagon. But I think it's simply the nature of the Wolves defense this season where it's really not that good. So you would generally be relying more on attacking returns for Aït-Nouri to get FPL points. So that's just kind of a side pointer, but I do think like with the fixtures moving forward, it's not impossible for them to pick up a couple of clean sheets. I just don't think it's going to be that many. And that is, I guess, one of the downsides to Aït-Nouri. Aside from that, all the good things still stay in that he's a great asset to own, guaranteed to start. He's also the most attacking Wolves asset as well in terms of defenders. I think when you compare to some midfielders as well, across many other teams, you don't say just Wolves, other teams as well, you would think that Aït-Nouri at 4.5 million is a bit of a steal because he's performing better than those mid-priced midfielders from other teams. So I would say he's a great asset to go for. I don't think the yellow card situation puts me off too much. It's just that moving forward, I know for myself that Wolves aren't going to keep a lot of clean sheets. I would be looking more for attacking returns when I'm going for Aït-Nouri. If not, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe as well. And let me know out of all these players, what do you think about my comments and my thoughts as well? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? Let's have a bit of a discussion in the comments section. And I will see you guys in more Game Week 10 content coming very soon. Bye bye.